Welcome to TINAH Talks, where time is not a healer, but we believe that we all have the power to heal ourselves and take our mental well-being into our own hands. This podcast is a byproduct of TINAH, the mental well-being marketplace, and a community platform at timeisnotahealer.com, where we provide you with the best products for your self-healing journey. Hit subscribe and follow us on socials if you want support on your mental well-being journey. We're your hosts, Kelsey and Sophie, and this episode is all about how TINAH got started, and what our mission is and what it is that we're ultimately trying to achieve. So, Sophie, tell me, it is your original brainchild. You are the founder. Tell me what got you started with TINAH, or how did TINAH get started?
Yeah, TINAH has been in the making for a while. So I have wanted to get into the mental health world for probably like the past 2 or 3 years. I've been thinking about setting something up in the mental health world, and I went through so many different like business ideas, business models, and nothing was sticking, nothing like made sense. And the reason that I wanted to go into the mental health world is that I have struggled with my mental health challenges throughout my life, and really probably over the past 4 or 5 years have really started to become more aware of them, understand myself and the challenges that I face better, and how to actually not overcome them. I don't think you always necessarily have to overcome something, but how to manage them. And I have gone on a very long self healing journey because I wasn't getting the support that I needed. So I'm originally from the UK, and in the UK, like to get support for your mental health, it's a challenge. Like it's really hard, and like I back in 2018 had a bit of a mental breakdown. I just came out of a long-term relationship. It didn't end very well. I'd already kind of been struggling with my mental health prior to the breakup happening, but this really like elevated it, and I was kind of having daily panic attacks, and I would literally go to the toilets and cry all day at work, and I couldn't hold myself together. I was very much like struggling on a daily basis, didn't had some very, very negative thought patterns, and that was then leading to very negative behaviors and the way that I was reflecting my pain onto the world as well. So I kind of took it was a long healing process that started off in therapy. That was the kind of first point. But in the UK, to get therapy, it's a process. And unless you have money to access therapy, or have private healthcare, it is a challenge to actually get the level of support that you need. Like the bog standard therapy support service in the UK is to just be put on a waiting list for cognitive behavioural therapy, which definitely works. Like I know that works, and it's worked for me in certain ways, but it wasn't what I needed at that time. I just needed someone to talk to, and to get like a general counselling talking therapy, it's impossible on the NHS. You either have to pay however much money a month to get access to that service. And 5 years ago, things like BetterHelp didn't exist. So it was like, you're paying £60-70 for an hour session. I couldn't afford it. Luckily, I had private healthcare, so I could go down that route of like therapy. And that kind of started off like my healing mental well-being journey, where I went through the therapy route, still was struggling, still didn't really know like myself inside out and understand like the reasons why I was struggling. And that continued then into like a lot more kind of like mindset work, self-development work, subconscious work, all sorts of different things to try and fix whatever I was feeling, which was like a generalized state of overwhelm and anxiousness. Like there was a period of time that I lived in England where I would wake up every day and I felt like someone was stamping on my chest, and I was like, what is this feeling? I don't understand why I feel like this every single morning. And I'd wake up and I'd be like a tornado around my flat, and I'd be like, I don't know how to deal with this. Like I've got such an overwhelming feeling that I don't know what it is. So I went on this long journey of like how to figure out what it was, why I was feeling that way, and get to the root cause of it, and then try and fix the root cause of the problem. So I went on that long self-development healing journey, and then that kind of led me to have a real passion for like talking about mental health, because I clearly can talk about it fairly openly, and I'm very open and not very discreet person. So I am very happy to talk about it. But what I realized along the way, that sometimes these conversations make people very uncomfortable, and like what I then started noticing about myself, I was noticing in other people, and I was like, oh, okay, like they're very clearly struggling with X, but they're not really doing anything about it. And I started to realize that actually it's because the conversation is so stigmatized that they don't want to, they don't know that they can, and they don't feel safe enough to go and get the support. So that then led to feeling so frustrated and wound up about it that I was like, actually, I need to do something to change this. Like I can't find any resource or anything that like is accessible for people to just go and get the help that they need as and when they need it. And that's where I think like TINAH, the original idea, was born. It wasn't called TINAH at that point, but this has been like a thought in the back of my head probably for the past 2 years, that there needs to be some kind of accessible platform where people can go to get the support that they need outside of professional healthcare, because I think there's loads of available for you to be able to make changes in your day-to-day life to help improve your mental health and mental well-being, but the resources to do that aren't necessarily that accessible all in one place. There's like, I have to go to this blog article, I have to go and read this, listen to this podcast, or read this book. It's like not all in one centralized place, which makes it really hard to actually get the support you need. So essentially that was the kind of foundational thought process behind it. But then I realized, okay, well, how do I actually make this into a business? Like, how can I start this? How can I make something happen? And I got a background in product, so like my whole career I've been a buyer for like different fashion brands, and then I started my own business in like supporting e-commerce business founders start and grow their brands. And I realized, right, why don't I marry the two up, because there's so many products that actually support mental well-being. So the idea would be that TINAH is a marketplace for people to support people on their mental wellbeing journey through products, services, and apps. And this would be like the centralized place for people to come to. And that idea kind of got born actually in about August 2023, one random evening whilst I was living in Albania for the summer. And I just suddenly thought, you know what, like this needs to happen now. Like I'm just going to go for it. And that night I just started like working on developing the idea for it. And then here we are. And the name Time Is Not a Healer basically came from when I was going through like a period of like full-on mental health crisis. Everyone was like, don't worry, time's going to heal you, time's going to heal you. And I just remember getting so angry every time someone told me time is going to heal me, because I was like, well, it's been 6 months since I started feeling like this. Time's not helping me, time is not going to help me. So the conclusion that I personally have come to is that time is your resource. Time is not going to heal you itself. Time is a resource to help you heal or find ways to heal. And that's kind of where the name came from. And then coincidentally I wrote Time Is Not a Healer down one day, and the acronym was TINAH. So I was like, okay, well, there's the business name. so then here we are. And then I always kind of knew that I didn't want to start a business again by myself. I've already started one by myself, and I know that it takes a team to actually make a business work, which is then how we ended up connecting and getting you on board. So I don't know if you want to share your thoughts and experience with that process.
Yeah, sure. I mean, like, so you and I met when we were both living in Asia. We were both living in Indonesia at the time. And I remember like one of the first things we bonded over was just talking about mental health, mental wellness. And for those of you that like, if you've listened to other episodes or not, but like, right, I have my own personal journey with mental health. And then I also used to work in the inpatient psychiatry realm. So I have a lot of experience on that end. And I now do high performance coaching. So I'm not so much on the clinical side, but I'm just working with business owners on like their personal performance and showing up for themselves alongside with the business performance. But we talked about a lot of those things and we bonded, and, you know, we've stayed in touch since we like separated. And then I saw you were posting about TINAH and Time Is Not a Healer and this idea that you wanted to start. And just like you, right? I've started my own business. It's fucking hard. Then like to have another business idea to get involved in, and especially being mental health, mental wellness related, I was like, heck yeah, like if you're doing things, you're taking people on, you want support for this, like I would love to get involved in some shape or form. And it turns out we both complement each other really well based on our skill sets. And so it's kind of like we've just married the two. But I love the premise of it because right? I think therapy is fantastic. It's a great place to be able to soundboard your experiences and your thoughts in a very safe way, to get it out and to see how, a therapist responds, or the feedback and the alternative perspectives that they can give you. And although time does lessen the sting, or it more or less, like, right, when we experience something over and over again, it just becomes familiar. So it's not that it's comfortable, it's just familiar. And so you know what's happening, and that then feels a little bit easier, only because we know what's happening. It doesn't lessen the discomfort of your experience. And I think, in education and society today, like, we're really not taught how to manage our thoughts and manage our feelings and then our behaviors that go along with that. And a lot of people say, like, well, your family unit is supposed to, your family's supposed to do that. But a lot of us come from broken homes, fucked up homes. Our parents might not, like, most of the older generation, they don't know these things. I mean, this is why mental health has been so stigmatized, because it's passed down from generation to generation. It's not an open conversation. And so there needs to be a change in the way that we approach mental health, approach mental wellness, and we talk about it and have conversations. And yeah, and I think, right, you have to be, unfortunately, right, the concept, no one's really going to come to save us, right? No one's going to come to save me. We have to be advocates for ourselves and our own well-being. And there are a lot of things that we can do to learn how to more healthily cope with our uncomfortable thoughts, with our uncomfortable feelings, and change our behaviors so that we are engaging in day-to-day life in a better way for ourselves, and so that we can move out of that survival mode and more into that thriving mode. Because there is a difference between, like, simply surviving versus thriving, and, like, the middle ground in between. But there are coping skills for each of those, like, behaviors and coping skills for each of those kind of needs. And so I love the concept of TINAH. I think, right, what we were saying earlier, it's like the Etsy of mental health products, mental wellness products, right? When you are when you're depressed or anxious or not functioning to the best of your abilities, to have to, like, go and then research and figure out what can I do to help myself, and go across multiple blogs and look through different products and all these things, it's very daunting, and you're already really exhausted. And it's hard to, like, focus your energy on that, especially if you don't know where to start. So, like, oh yeah, let's create a marketplace that's going to provide people the resources all in one place. You still have to advocate for yourself and take some action, but, like, at least we can help with, like, providing an all in one space for it that's, like, accessible.
Exactly. And I think one of the biggest problems in the mental health, mental wellness world is the lack of, you don't understand sometimes what is happening to you, right? Like, you could
Yeah.
feel it one way, and you don't necessarily know what that means or what it's associated with, or like then consequently how to fix it. So like I was saying, like, I used to wake up every single day. Well, no, first of all, I used to have daily panic attacks. Like, for about 6 months I was having daily panic attacks where I was, like, doubled up in pain, bursting into tears on the side of the street, like, not like, my chest was so tight. I was like, am I dying? Like, am I about to die? Like, what is this? What is happening to me? And I had no idea, like, what that was, until then went to the doctor and was like, hey, what the hell is happening to me? Like, am I about to
Yeah.
drop down? And obviously they were like, well, I think it sounds like you're having panic attacks. And I was like, well, I don't have panic attacks. I'm not panicked. What do you mean? Like, I don't understand. Why would I be having panic attacks? So I think, like, the biggest thing is, like, self-awareness. And, like, the thing is, when you can be self-aware of the symptoms happening to yourself, but you still might not necessarily understand them. And I think one of the things that it's not that widely accessible unless you have access to the doctor or have access to the therapist to get that information. And I think that's one of the things that we want to achieve with TINAH, is to really, like, educate people on, like, if this is how you feel, this is potentially what might be happening to you, and this is potentially how you can not fix it by yourself, but get the tools and the coping mechanisms to help you eliminate some of those symptoms or make them better. We're not claiming to be therapists. We're not a replacement for therapy at all. We're not a replacement for your doctor. we do believe that there's ways outside of like that traditional medical route to support yourself and make yourself feel even 10% better. And that's essentially what we wanted to try and help with TINAH, is like to educate you that that is a possibility, because I think so many people don't even realize that it is.
Yeah. I mean, it's basically the power of knowledge, right? Even if we're not sharing like education on like technical things of like, let me teach you what these symptoms mean. It's about like you talking about your story with me gives me insight into my own personal story. And me sharing my story gives you insight and being like, oh, that makes sense. Like I've had experiences like that, but I never understood it in that way, right? Like, and so having the open communication, right, not only destigmatizes, but it provides power through knowledge and through like understanding and being able to relate to other people. Because I think a huge symptom of mental health issues, especially depression, but other ones, is that you feel alone, like you feel misunderstood, and that makes you feel more isolated, and then it feeds into your anxiety or your depression more. And so being able to provide a space for people to like at least talk about stuff, and we're not talking about like dumping, like I'm not here to dump on you and you have to deal with my problems kind of deal, but like having a an ability to be self-aware and share your knowledge with other people could potentially help them, right? Like it's that educational piece, but also that like personal experience sharing piece and like having that open communication. So like I'm all for it. This is why I partnered with you for TINAH.
Yeah, I think it can be very empowering, and obviously, like that's another one of our kind of missions with TINAH, is to empower people to take it into their own hands, and you do that
Right.
by the educational piece and opening the conversation up, and the destigmatization piece is something that we both really strongly believe in. Like we're both, like you said, very open about our own mental health and healing journeys and what have you, but I think so many people still aren't comfortable. When we were doing the research for TINAH, I think it was over 60% of people that we interviewed said that they weren't comfortable talking about openly or seeking help for their mental health because they still felt embarrassment or stigma around it, which for me is just unacceptable. I'm not having that anymore. Like I want to change that. That's definitely what one of my biggest passions for this business. This business is a bit of a passion project more so than anything, because
Yeah.
I'm really strongly believe that like people can access this, should be able to access the support that they need without it costing thousands and thousands of pounds, and be able to change their lives on their own as well, like take it into your own hands. Like so many people sometimes, like one, they don't realize that they can, but I think also sometimes people get stuck. They get stuck in their they get stuck in shit, right? Like you're
Yeah.
stuck in this headspace, you're in a spiral. Like it's like, how do I get out of that? But even if we can just change that for like one person, I'd be happy with like this business. Like it's
Yeah.
literally, we want to be able to destigmatize it, educate you on what's possible, and help empower you to take it into your own hands, because it is possible to achieve results. Like I think like 90% of the things that I've done throughout like my mental well-being healing journey has been by myself. Yes, I have had
Yeah.
therapy. I've been fortunate enough to be able to pay for therapy and also have it on private healthcare, so I know that I am fortunate in that, and I'm privileged in that sense. However, like the rest of it has all been through like self-help books, or like trying alternative things, like trying to think like things like meditation, free apps on the internet, like all
Yeah.
of different resources. But I've had to really seek those out. There wasn't things that just came
Yeah.
to me. I got them through recommendations, and essentially that's what we want to build with TINAH, is a bit of a, this is what we recommend, this is how we can help support you, and why don't you try it? And ultimately it's all a trial and error game. Like what works for me might not work for you, might not work for somebody else, but we can
Right.
share our knowledge is power, right? And that's what we were trying to do basically, is share the knowledge that we've picked up along the way. Obviously that's is technically science backed as well, what we're doing, because everything that we're suggesting is things that have been tried and tested previously from that science backed field, like things like mindfulness,
Mhm.
meditation, like gratitudes, like all of that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Hmm.
So it's things that we've tried, but in our own way, not necessarily in that like
Right.
science way that like maybe you'd get fed by your doctor, for example, when it might not resonate. Like we're trying to make it human, basically, the
Yeah.
conversation human.
We were trying to humanize it. I mean, same. I mean, like I've had my experiences of major depression. I was experiencing anxiety attacks for a long time, and I still had like generalized anxiety. But like I'm someone who it's my own personal preference. I've been on meds before. I've been on antidepressants and I've had anti-anxiety meds, which have been helpful in times of when I really needed them and like really deep spirals. But like on a general basis, like I'm an anxious person, and so I have to figure out how to cope and deal with that, like like on a regular basis. The things that have helped me were things that I learned like just inadvertently. Like breath work has actually been super super helpful for me. I know a lot of people think about like meditation, but meditation is sometimes hard to sit down and do as like a newbie and a beginner, especially if you're starting out in a very hyper anxious state. I found breath work to be really helpful for me. Now, for example, my boyfriend, breath work can be really really hard for him because focusing on his breathing actually like adds to his anxiety and like hyper stimulating, right? I find like yoga has been like the ultimate game changer for me in managing my anxiety and my mood and like making sure I feel good in my body. Right. So everyone's journey is different, but I think, right, with TINAH, our ultimate goal is to provide people the options of pathways and the resources and the tools to figure out, to try things and figure out what works best for them. I mean, like, what would you say are the ultimate vision and goal for TINAH is?
Yeah, exactly. Like the main mission is, like I said, educate, empower, destigmatize. Like they're the three
Yeah.
things that we do. And ultimately we want to be your go-to platform for everything when it comes to mental well-being. If you even start thinking that you're struggling with something or you want to start exploring yourself and developing yourself more, we're going to be able to provide you with recommended routines, products, services that is all going to support your mental well-being journey, basically. So yeah, eventually, who knows what TINAH could become, but right now it's going to be a mental wellbeing marketplace to support your beginning or mid or end of your healing journey, whatever that looks like for you. It's going to be different for everybody, and we know that it's not a one size fits all approach, but we can definitely try and recommend you what we suggest, how to make it happen, and also open that conversation up. Like there's a lot of things that we're trying to do, like with this podcast, with TINAH Talks, communities, etc. We want to try and make as many people part of the conversation as possible, because the more people that back this, the more change, and then hopefully it then allows change in like the actual healthcare side of it as well, because right now it's still really difficult to get the support that you need across the world in different places. Just we have to travel a lot. I know that in different places it's still very very difficult, so maybe starting things like this, people will start seeing that actually that side of things needs to change as well, and it's like part of a bigger purpose. But essentially the goal is to support as many people as possible in their own self-development mental wellbeing journeys.
Yeah, just make it a little easier for everyone because life can be hard.
Exactly, and we'll share more about our own personal journeys and tips, tricks, all sorts of things, and like along the way throughout this podcast and through our content that we post on social media. But for today, I think that's kind of a generalized what we wanted to share with you, just why TINAH exists, and you know, like what our plans are really with TINAH. So thank you for listening to today's episode. If this resonated with you, be sure to give us a like, and we would love to hear your feedback in the comments about what topics you'd like to hear more about. So don't forget to subscribe, follow us on socials, and join the community at tinisnotahealer.com. All the details can be found in the episode description below. And remember, you hold the power to heal. Until next time, you have got this.